Stop scrolling. Before you swipe past this, I need you to notice something. This is the third time this month. You almost had it. The offer, the yes, the door, and it slipped 1 inch to the left at the exact last second. That is not bad luck. That has a mechanism. And in the next few minutes, I am going to name it. Chosen one. I know that phrase landed different than the usual scroll. That is not an accident. It found you on purpose. Here is the part almost nobody says out loud. You have not been losing. You have been arriving 1/2 second too late to a race that was never about speed. There is a signal your mind has been sending without your permission. Every single time something good got close, and that signal is the actual reason it turned away. By the end of this message, you are going to understand 3 things. You are going to understand exactly why the timing keeps missing you by inches. You are going to feel, maybe for the first time, why that ache in your chest when you watch someone else get your opportunity is not envy, it is recognition. And you are going to walk away with something you can use tonight, not next year, to change what happens the next time a door opens near you. Here is a piece of what is underneath this. There are 2 frequencies in the brain that decide, more than talent or effort ever could, who notices an opening and who lets it pass. One of them lights up when you were a child and quietly dims with every year of adulthood. That dimming is why you stopped seeing possibilities you used to see effortlessly. The other one spikes when you are stressed, and it does something almost nobody has explained to you correctly. It does not just make you anxious, it actually closes the exact channel that lets good things land on you, even when they are standing right in front of you. That is not the full mechanism yet. That is one piece, on purpose, because I want you to feel it land before I give you the rest. And here is why this is happening precisely now, and not 6 months from now. The season attached to your life shifted this week, not metaphorically, structurally. Windows like that do not stay open. They do not announce themselves loudly either. Most people miss them the same way they missed every door before it. You did not come across this by accident. If you are still here, comment the word chosen right now, before you keep listening. So, what I am about to walk you through actually has somewhere to land, because what comes next is the exact sequence, not motivation, a sequence that explains why your turn kept slipping away and how that changes starting today. Let me tell you what I already know about you, chosen one, before you tell me anything. You check the account, the inbox, the message thread, and you close it fast, before your own hope has time to stand up. You have stood in an ordinary room, one hand on a door, already knowing the answer before anyone said a word out loud. That is not a coincidence, and it is not a personality trait either. It is a pattern I have watched repeat, in person after person, who is walking through the exact season you are walking through right now. And I want to name it plainly, instead of dancing around it the way most messages like this one do. What has been happening to you does not come from a lack of effort. It comes from 2 frequencies inside your mind that have been firing out of order for most of your life. Restore them in their true sequence, and you stop arriving late to your own opportunities. Sit with that for a moment. Not lazy, not undisciplined, not unworthy, out of order. There is a very old teaching, one your spirit already recognizes, even if your mind has not caught up yet, about becoming like a little child again before anything can truly be received. The Father does not withhold a door from a child who is still learning to walk toward it. He waits for the walking to become possible. That is not punishment. That is sequence. I am not going to ask you to believe anything today. I am going to ask you to notice, because noticing is the doorway the Holy Spirit tends to use first, long before any instruction ever arrives, and long before any effort is required of you at all. Here is the part I need you to hold on to through everything that follows. You have already done enough. Whatever this season required of your striving, your prayer, your patience, you have already paid it. What has been missing was never more effort. It was one final piece, and that piece has nothing to do with how hard you have tried. That ache you feel watching someone else receive what felt like it should have been yours, we already named it once, and I am going to keep naming it honestly, instead of softening it into something safer. It is not envy. Envy wants what belongs to another. This is recognition, and recognition only activates around what was already assigned to you. A season window just shifted around your life. I will show you exactly why that is structural, not sentimental, before this message ends. But first you need the mechanism, because a shifted season means nothing to a mind that is still receiving on the wrong frequency, in the wrong order, the way yours has been. I have watched this exact shape appear in people who look nothing alike on the outside. A nurse in one state, a contractor in another, a mother who has not slept a full night in years. Different lives, same signature. They rehearse the win in their head with perfect clarity, and then something inside them arrives a half-breath too late when the real moment finally opens. You have done that too. Replayed the conversation you wished you had started. Pictured the yes before you ever asked the question. That rehearsal was never wasted. It was your spirit practicing for a doorway your body had not yet learned to walk through fast enough, and that gap between practice and arrival is the entire subject of what comes next. Becoming who you are on the other side of this does not require you to become a different person. It requires two frequencies to stop working against each other. That is smaller than you think, and it is closer than you think. And by the end of this message, you will know exactly where it lives inside you. I want to say one more thing before we go further, because I do not want you carrying an old shame into a teaching meant to remove it. Nothing about what you are struggling with makes you weaker, less faithful, or less chosen than anyone else who seems to catch every good thing without effort. It makes you someone whose two frequencies simply have not been shown their proper order yet, and that is the only thing standing between you and everything you have been quietly praying to catch up to. There is a reason this message reaches you tonight instead of tomorrow, and it has nothing to do with chance and everything to do with timing that is genuinely yours. You are not eavesdropping on a message meant for somebody else. You are the intended audience of the next several minutes, and I want you to actually receive that instead of letting it slide past the way most true things do on an ordinary night. Walking in the Spirit has never meant walking without confusion. It has meant walking one honest step at a time, even through a season you could not fully explain yet. That is exactly what you have been doing, whether you gave it that name or not, and it is precisely why this message found the version of you who was finally ready to hear the rest of it. Here is the first piece, named plainly, The Way I Promised. There was a season, and you remember it even if you have not thought about it in years, when a good thing would still be 3 streets away, and you would already feel it coming. A knock before the knock. A name crossing your mind seconds before the phone rang with that exact name on the screen. You did not work for that. It simply arrived, because something in you was still tuned to notice it early. Now compare that to last month. The opportunity was standing directly in front of you, close enough to touch, and you noticed it only after it had already turned to leave. Not because you were careless, because something that used to notice early has gone quiet, and it went quiet so slowly that you never caught the moment it happened. You have called this getting older. Some of you have called it being too busy to pay attention anymore, or losing your edge, or simply having too much on your mind these days to catch things the way you once did. I want to be direct with you. None of those explanations are what actually happened to you, and I say that with real care, not to argue with you. Here is the mechanism underneath it, and I want to walk through it slowly because this is the part that changes everything after it. There is a frequency in the brain, researchers call it gamma, that runs at full strength in early childhood. It is the frequency of noticing without effort, of wonder, of catching a possibility before your conscious mind has even finished forming the thought. A child runs on that frequency almost constantly. That is why a child notices a stray dog, a strange cloud, a coin on the sidewalk, and an adult standing 3 feet away notices none of it. It is not attention span, it is frequency. And starting around the age most of us stopped being able to remember clearly, that frequency begins to dim, not because of age itself, but because of everything age is trained to demand of you instead. I have sat with enough people carrying this exact weight to notice the shape repeats, almost identically, from one life to the next, so I finally put a name to it myself. Not because some journal handed me the phrase, simply because it is precisely what the pattern looks like from where I am standing, watching it happen again and again. I call it the decline effect. Striving dulls the very frequency that once made noticing effortless, and it dulls it in a straight, traceable line, the more an adult is trained to push instead of perceive. Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years studying this exact frequency, has documented this pattern through research connected to MIT, Princeton, Harvard, and several other leading research universities. What his work describes is not a diagnosis. It is a shape he has watched repeat with enough consistency to finally put language around it. I cannot tell you the exact week that frequency began dimming in you. Nobody honestly can, and anyone who claims they can is selling you a certainty they do not actually have. What I can tell you, with real confidence, is the shape of what happened. It was not sudden, it was not your fault, and it is nowhere near as permanent as it has felt for however many years you have been carrying it. This is the part almost nobody tells you gently. The dimming was never a loss of who you are. It was a volume being turned down on a frequency that is still fully intact underneath, waiting the exact same way a pilot light waits behind a stove that has simply not been lit in a while. Somewhere in you, right now, a version of that child is still keeping watch. The same way they kept watch through every year you assumed they had left for good. They did not leave. They simply learned to wait quietly, in a house that got louder and busier every year, for someone to finally notice they never actually walked out the door. So those years you have been quietly ashamed of, the ones where you swear you should have caught more, built more, noticed more, they were never you failing. You were not lazy. You were dimmed. A dimmed light is not a broken one, and it has never once needed to be replaced, only turned back up. Here is something you can do tonight, and it costs you nothing, and it belongs to no product at all. Pull up a single unremarkable memory from somewhere back before you turned 8. Nothing dramatic. The creak of a screen door. The particular smell of something baking on a Sunday afternoon. The way sunlight used to lay across a specific carpet in a specific room. Hold that image for one slow breath and notice what happens in your chest. That flicker you just felt is not nostalgia. That is the frequency itself, still fully alive under everything you have piled on top of it since. If you felt even the smallest version of that just now, something in you already knows this message is not a coincidence. Comment the word ready, so this moment does not pass you by the way the others did. Sit in that for one more breath before we keep moving. Most people scrolling past a message like this one never once stop long enough to actually feel what I just described. You did. That already tells you something true about which side of this you are standing on. If you are still with me, comment the word here, so what comes next has somewhere real to land, specifically for you. There is a reason I am telling you this now, and not waiting until the very end the way most messages like this one do. Some of you already felt that flicker in your chest a moment ago. If you did, the next part is for you. If you did not feel anything yet, that is honestly fine. This next piece is not for you today. and I say that without any judgment at all. What I have just described to you, the frequency, the dimming, the way it can be gently reawakened, is not only something you can access through memory and stillness. There is a 7-minute audio built by Dr. Lake specifically to reawaken that exact frequency through the kind of sound engineering his research made possible, and it works with the mechanism we just walked through together, not against it. That is only the first half of what you are missing, and I want to be honest that it is only half, because the second half is the part almost nobody explains correctly. There is another frequency, one that spikes under stress, and it closes something separate entirely, something that does not open again just because the first frequency comes back online. One restores the child in you. The other one opens the actual channel that lets anything good reach you once that child is awake again. They only work in that order. Restoration first, then reception, for a reason you are going to fully understand before this message ends. What you need is placed beneath this message, in the description and in the pinned comment, so you do not have to search for anything. For now, let us go back to exactly where we were, because the deeper half of this mechanism is still waiting, and it is the heavier half by far. I want to be honest about something before we continue. Naming the first frequency is not the whole gift. It is the half that made your childhood make sense again. The half that explains why your adult life kept slipping 1 inch at a time is still ahead of us, and it is going to be harder to hear because it points somewhere most people never think to look. Picture a particular morning, some months from now. Nothing dramatic about the date itself. You open your eyes before the alarm has even reached you, before a single worry has time to load itself into your mind. Something in your chest is already lighter than you remember it being in years. You lie there for a moment. The familiar knot that usually sits under your ribs the second you wake is simply not there. The first thing that moves through you is not a list of everything you have to survive today. It is a small, quiet question, the kind you stopped asking somewhere around the age of 8, about what today might actually hold for you. You notice a bird outside a window you have walked past 1,000 mornings without once looking up. You notice it the way you used to notice things, before noticing became something you had to work for. That is not luck. That is a frequency doing exactly what it was always built to do. The decline effect finally running in reverse, quietly climbing back toward the child it once belonged to. The distance between the you lying there and the you reading this right now is not effort, and it was never time either. It is one frequency, turned down a long time ago, that has simply never once been shown how to turn back up. That distance is closing faster than you think. Now, some of you are sitting with this thinking it sounds lovely, and also thinking, quietly, that it sounds like exactly the kind of thing that turns out not to be real. I want to honor that thought, instead of talking past it, because that thought is not resistance, it is intelligence doing its job. Here is what I would say back to that intelligence. This is not one study from one small lab that nobody can find again. 2 entirely separate lines of brainwave research run independently at different institutions, years apart from each other, arrived at the same shape from 2 different directions. That kind of convergence is rare, and it is exactly why I am willing to stake this entire message on it. I have watched this exact frequency shift show up in a woman who works nights at a hospital, a man who runs a small landscaping crew, a widow in her 60s who had not felt curious about anything in a decade. Different lives, same signature, the moment the sequence was finally restored in the correct order. None of this is a promise about a specific day or a specific dollar amount landing in your account. Anyone selling you that kind of certainty is not being honest with you, and I would rather lose your trust for a moment than earn it with something I cannot actually stand behind. What I can stand behind is the pattern, and the second half of that pattern, the heavier half, the one almost nobody explains correctly, is exactly where we are headed next. Some of you noticed something else while you were picturing that morning a moment ago. It was not just curiosity that came back in the scene. Something in your chest stayed loose the entire time, the way it almost never does when you picture your own future these days. Hold on to that detail. It matters far more than it seems to right now, and we are about to find out exactly why. You have carried a version of this pattern in more than one area of your life, not only the big, obvious misses, the friendship that cooled a season too early, the idea you almost pitched, then watched someone else pitch instead. None of those were separate failures. They were the same signal, misfiring in the same order, in room after room of your life. Here is the heavier half, and I promised you we would get here, so let us not soften it. Someone offers you help, and you hear your own mouth say no before you have even finished deciding. A compliment lands, and you hand it straight back, deflected, almost by reflex. You have wanted more for as long as you can remember, and somewhere along the way you have quietly turned down 100 small arrivals of exactly that, without ever once noticing you were doing it. This is the third time this month, remember, that the offer slipped 1 inch to the left at the exact last second. That is not the world being unfair to you. That is this second mechanism doing precisely what it has been doing for years. You have called that independence. Some of you have called it humility, or being careful, or simply not wanting to owe anyone anything. It is none of those things, and I want to say clearly that it was never a character flaw either. It is a reflex, and reflexes are installed. They are not chosen, which means they can also be uninstalled. Here is the mechanism itself. Adult survival mode, the constant low hum of money, worry, vigilance, scarcity thinking, keeps the brain running almost continuously on a frequency researchers call beta. Beta is useful for defending yourself. It is nearly useless for receiving anything, because receiving requires a completely different frequency called alpha, the frequency of an open, trusting, unguarded state. When beta stays elevated for years at a time, it crowds alpha almost entirely out of the picture. And when alpha goes quiet, the actual channel that lets good things land on you, the one that lets an opportunity arrive and simply stay instead of slipping away again, closes, not metaphorically, structurally. I call this the stress signal, and once you can name it, you will start to feel it the instant it fires. There is an old teaching about receiving the way a child receives, without calculating whether it has been earned first. In the original language that teaching was given in, the word for child there is paidion, a very small child, one who has not yet learned to negotiate a gift before accepting it. That is exactly the state this second frequency is meant to restore in you. Dr. Stephen Newton, a former Stanford neuroscientist who broke from the establishment to release this particular research, has traced this exact closing of the reception channel through work connected to Stanford, Boston University, and other research institutions. His findings are not a promise. They are a pattern, reported by the people who conducted the work, and I want to be honest that I am relaying what has been reported, not something I personally measured myself. This is why the timing kept missing you by inches, not because a door failed to open. The door opened plenty of times. It is because the channel meant to receive whatever came through it was sitting closed the entire time, running hot on stress instead of open on trust. And no amount of hustling toward the door was ever going to fix a channel problem. Prayer in this season was never the problem either. Some of you have quietly wondered whether your own asking was somehow insufficient, whether you needed to ask louder, longer, more perfectly. You did not need a louder prayer. You needed a channel able to actually hold the answer once it arrived. And that is a very different kind of repair than the one you have been attempting. So it was never true that nothing good ever came your way. Things came. You were simply running a frequency that could not hold on to them once they arrived. Not a life of scarcity. A life of arrivals you were quietly built to deflect, one small refusal at a time. You are not someone who cannot receive. You are someone who was never shown how the channel works. There is a difference between a door that does not exist and a door that has simply never been opened, and you have been standing in front of the second kind for a very long time. I think of a man I will just call the provider, because that is exactly what he had been his entire adult life. 2 jobs, most years, every extra dollar routed toward his kids before it ever touched his own hands. He would have told you, if you had asked, that he was doing fine, that he did not need anything for himself. Then a former client reached out about a partnership that would have quietly doubled his income within the year. He said no within about 4 seconds, before he had even let himself picture what a yes might look like. Not because the offer was bad, because something in him closed the instant anything arrived that was meant only for him. He told me later, it did not feel like fear. It felt like a reflex, the same reflex that made him hand back a compliment or wave off a free meal. Once he finally understood what that reflex actually was, he described it simply. It was never that he did not deserve it. It was that no one had ever taught him how to keep his hand open long enough to receive it. Here is something you can do the very next time anything is offered to you. Help, a compliment, a seat, a kindness of any size. Do not improve it. Do not deflect it. Say one single word, yes. Then notice exactly where your body tries to take that word back. That resistance you just located is the entire mechanism we have been discussing this whole time. Now, some of you have already tried a great deal to fix this on your own. Meditation, journaling, a book that promised to rewire your mindset in 30 days. I want to honor every single one of those attempts, because none of them failed due to some flaw in you. Every single one of those tools was built to work on only one of these 2 frequencies, usually the slower, quieter one, through patient discipline built up from the inside. None of them were ever aimed at the second frequency, the one running underneath in the background. And that second frequency is precisely what kept the first tool from ever finishing its job. I have watched this same pattern hold across every single person who has walked this exact season, whatever their story looked like on the surface. The tool was never wrong. It was simply outnumbered, doing the work of one frequency, while a second one quietly undid it from underneath. There is one more piece I have not explained yet, and it belongs specifically to you, because it is the piece hiding inside this exact title. Why now? Why does this moment feel different from every other moment you have almost caught something and lost it again? A season window is not a superstition, and it is not a feeling you talked yourself into. It is structural, the same way a tide is structural rather than emotional. Both frequencies we have named do not simply sit still inside you. They move in cycles, tightening and loosening across weeks and months. And there are specific windows where both of them loosen at nearly the same time, which is precisely when an outside opportunity and an inside readiness finally line up. Most of the misses you have lived through were not failures of character. They were mistimed collisions, a real opportunity arriving while your 2 frequencies happened to be loosening on different weeks instead of the same one. That is why it so often felt like it was 1 inch away rather than a mile away. It was 1 inch away. The 2 clocks inside you were simply not yet synchronized to the same beat. There is an old teaching about a due season, a time when what was quietly planted long ago is finally ready to be gathered in one movement, not scattered across years the way it has felt for you. When both frequencies restore in their true order, those 2 internal clocks stop drifting apart and start moving together, and that is the entire structural reason this particular moment in your life is not like the others that came before it. Let us slow down together for just a moment before we go any further. Breathe once, all the way out. You have taken in more in the last few minutes than most people let themselves absorb in an entire week, and there is no rush from here to the end of this message. Some of you, right now, are thinking something quieter than skepticism. You are thinking that all of this sounds wonderful, and that it is probably meant for someone a little more ready than you are. I want to speak straight to that thought, because it is one of the oldest tricks either frequency plays on a tired mind. This was never built for people who feel ready. It was built for the ones honest enough to admit they are not. The way a child accepts a gift without first checking whether they have earned it. And I will be honest with you in return, the way I have tried to be this entire message. I cannot tell you the exact week anything shifts for you. Anyone who promises you that exact week is offering a certainty nobody actually holds. What I can tell you, with real confidence, is the order these two frequencies have to come back online in, because I have watched that order hold true again and again. Now picture something good being offered to you, a number, a door, a name you did not expect to hear. Notice the strangest part of this picture. Nothing in you moves to refuse it. Your hands stay open. Your chest does not tighten the way it usually does the instant something good gets close. The distance between the version of you who has spent a lifetime reaching and the version of you who simply receives without a fight was never about effort, and it was never about deserving either. It is one channel, closed a long time ago, that has never once been shown how to open. Let us do something together right now, and it will only take 1 minute. Sit up if you are able to, just slightly straighter than you are right now. Picture a room, quiet, ordinary, where a child is still sitting exactly where you left them, waiting, patient, not angry at you for the wait. In that room, there is a hand held out toward you, and for the first time, instead of reaching for it, you let it be placed into yours. You are not reaching for anything outside of you anymore. You are being handed something that was always addressed to you by name and asked simply to finally take it. Let your own hand open, physically, right where you are sitting. Let your shoulders drop an inch. Notice if your breath changes on its own. If you are still here, comment the word open right now, because what you just practiced for 1 minute is the exact thing the rest of this message is going to help you carry into every ordinary day after this one. So why does understanding all of this change nothing yet? You can see the mechanism clearly now. You can name both frequencies, and tomorrow morning, if nothing else moves, your chest will likely do exactly what it did this morning. The answer was never sitting in your understanding. It never was. Here is what you know now that you did not know at the start of this message. 2 frequencies went quiet in you, and they went quiet in a specific order. The first one dimmed the child in you, the one who used to notice everything early, without effort. That is the decline effect, still fading quietly in the background of every ordinary morning. The second one closed the channel that lets anything good actually land once it arrives, and that second one cannot be repaired while the first one is still sitting in the dark. Name it plainly, and you will feel it firing in real time, right now, in your own chest. Simply naming it again, out loud, already loosens the grip of this stress signal a little. There is a name for the entire architecture underneath both of these frequencies together, restoring one, then the other, in their true sequence. I call the whole shape of it child, mind, reversal. It gives you exactly this. Become the child again first, then be shown how to receive the way that child always could, without negotiation, without proving anything first. The identity underneath everything we have covered is simple. You are the chosen one, a child of light who never actually lost anything permanent, only misplaced the frequency that let it be seen and received. That is not a title I am handing you. It is the plain conclusion of everything both of these mechanisms have shown us together. What you now understand is entirely true, but understanding sitting quietly on its own has never yet opened a single door for anyone. Knowledge without restoration is simply a heavier kind of waiting, and you have already done enough waiting for one lifetime. What comes next is not another thing to understand. It is the actual mechanism, finally placed in front of you, that turns everything you now know into something your body can feel changing. There was a child inside you once who carried both frequencies at the same time, fully lit, fully open, noticing everything early and holding on to everything that arrived. Those two frequencies did not go quiet together. One dimmed first, the other closed later. That order is exactly why anything touching only one of them could only ever bring back half of what was taken. What comes next exists because someone remembered you long before you remembered yourself. Earlier, I told you two names were sitting beneath this message, waiting for the order between them to make sense. That moment has arrived now. The frequency named first, the one that dims quietly through every year of striving, is not something you are simply left to sit with. Something already exists, built specifically to reverse that dimming. It is called the Genius Song, a 7-minute audio track. It works with the exact frequency we already named, not against it. The mechanism is the same binaural activation of that childhood frequency we walked through earlier, simply carried in sound instead of memory. Dr. Lake built it from the same body of research connected to MIT, Princeton, and Harvard that we already discussed. It offers the return of the child who used to notice everything before anyone had to ask them to. I think of a retired school teacher who had not felt genuinely curious about anything in almost a decade. Weeks in, her daughter mentioned, unprompted, that her mother had started asking odd, delighted questions again at the dinner table, the way she used to before she stopped. Her daughter noticed the change first, which tells you something about how quietly this kind of return tends to arrive. And even after that first wave finishes exactly what it was built to do, here is what almost nobody tells you honestly. The child wakes. But waking is not the same as reaching something and keeping it. There is a second gate, and it has stayed closed the entire time, untouched by anything the first frequency was ever designed to reach. That gap is the entire reason a second piece exists at all. Picture a child standing inside a courtyard, fully awake now, while a drawbridge across from them stays raised. One wave restores the child. The other lowers that bridge, so the reception channel can finally open. Both, in that order, is what an old teaching meant when it said to become like a child first, and only then to receive what was promised. If that just landed somewhere in your chest, comment the word receive right now, before we go any further together. Now that the child in you is awake, here is what completes the sequence. The second wave does not restore anything. It opens what the first could never reach on its own, the actual channel that lets something good arrive and stay, instead of slipping 1 inch to the left. This second piece is called the wealth signal, a 5-minute audio paired with a 9-word script, a technique old enough that its exact origin has been passed down for over 3,000 years. I will simply call it an ancient technique, rather than assign it to any single tradition. The frequency work here lowers the stress hum we already named, and lets the receiving frequency rise back into place, the frequency that lets an offer land instead of bouncing off before you even register it arrived. Dr. Stephen Newton is the researcher behind this half of the work, the man who broke from the establishment to release this research, connected to Stanford, Boston University, and other research institutions. He built it to let what was always meant to reach you, actually reach you. Once the channel opens, what tends to follow is an offer met with a yes instead of a flinch, a kindness received instead of deflected. The reception this entire teaching was always quietly pointing toward. Some of you are still asking, quietly, why this takes 2 things instead of 1. You already know the answer. I gave it to you at the start. 2 frequencies, shut down in a specific order. The second alone leaves an open hand attached to a mind that cannot notice the opening. The first alone leaves the child awake at a door that will not budge. Both, in their true sequence, is why either one alone has quietly failed you before now. Beginning something new is a real commitment, and the actual risk was never the few minutes this asks of your day. The real risk has always been the years already spent without either frequency in place, and there is a way to remove that risk entirely, which I will show you in a moment. Here, then, is the path this entire message has been walking you toward. Complete restoration, both waves together, in their true order, is not one option among several others. It is where this entire teaching has been leading since the very first minute, the entire shape of what child mind reversal was always describing from the start. One sequence, both waves, complete. The child wakes, and the waiting ends. The child wakes, and the channel opens. The child wakes, and the noticing returns. The child wakes, and the receiving finally begins. Not one without the other, but together, exactly the way it was always meant to work. For some of you, the honest starting point of this journey is the genius song alone, Restoration First, the doorway every person walks through before anything else becomes possible. Not a lesser path, simply the beginning of the one path. And for a rare few, the child inside never went fully to sleep. If that is you, the wealth signal alone may be the only piece still missing. That door, sitting right beside the other one. Two waves, working together rather than stacked on top of each other, is what this entire sequence has been pointing toward from the very first word of this message. Alongside both waves, two things carry you further than the audios alone. With the Genius Song comes Genius Child, worth $19, built to help this same restoration take root early in the next generation. With the Wealth Signal comes 20 Wealth Signal success stories, worth $97. Proof this pattern holds across very different lives. Combined, the total value here is $418, offered alongside the two waves, rather than sold apart from them. None of this asks you to carry any risk alone. Every path comes with 90 days to simply listen, no conditions attached, and if it is not right for you, every dollar returns in full, and you keep every bonus regardless. According to what the makers report, close to 38,000 people have walked this sequence already, and fewer than 5 in 100 ever asked for that refund. Nothing complicated waits for you here. No new discipline to build, only listening, 12 minutes a day combined, delivered straight to your inbox. No shipping, nothing recurring. Compare that to a weekend retreat, a mindset course stretched across many weeks, a string of paid coaching sessions, or a meditation app billed every month. 12 minutes measures up rather differently against all of that. Remember that morning we stood inside together, the one where something good was offered, and nothing in you moved to refuse it. Every day, both frequencies stay where they are now, is a day that morning drifts, one day further away, not as a threat, simply the plain cost of leaving anything unopened. What is placed beneath this message is not scattered across different corners of the internet. Both original audios, every bonus, the full guarantee, all of it sits in exactly one place, right below where you are listening right now. Let us pause together for one breath before you decide anything. Rest one hand over your chest. Which sentence feels truer? The child inside me has been asleep a very long time, or the child inside me is already awake, but has never been shown how to receive. Your own spirit already knows, and it may well be both. What you need is simply placed beneath this message, waiting for whichever door your spirit recognizes. The paths are there, below where you are listening, and in the pinned comment, so you never have to search for them. If your spirit already knows which one is yours, step through whichever door is already calling your name. And one more thing, quietly, for those whose path asks them to go further. There is an amplified version of the restoration wave called the youthful brain for anyone wanting the first frequency carried even deeper. And there is a faster version of the reception work called Wealth Signal Accelerator for anyone wanting that channel to open more quickly. You will only meet either one after you have already stepped through the door, never before it. The original sequence, exactly as described tonight, is already whole on its own. These two exist only for the few whose path genuinely asks them to go deeper, only if your own spirit confirms that for you. You have walked with me all the way to this exact point in the message, and I want you to notice that, because most people scrolling tonight never make it this far. What remains now is the part I have been saving for last, on purpose, the way anything sacred is saved for the end, rather than spent too early. Before I say it, I want you to feel where you are sitting right now, however that looks for you. Whatever the room, whatever the hour, something in you already sensed this message was different from the moment that phrase first found you. That sense was correct, and it is about to be named fully. Nothing that follows requires you to prepare anything. Nothing requires you to be ready in the way the world usually asks you to be ready. You only need to be willing to receive what has been true about you this entire time, and willingness is the one thing you have already brought with you tonight, simply by staying this long. Before we close, let us simply sit with something true for one moment, without asking anything of it yet. The child inside you was never actually gone, not for one single day of any of the years you thought you had lost them. They sat quietly through every dimmed morning, every closed offer, every ache in your chest that you mistook for envy instead of recognition. They waited, patiently, the entire time, the way something eternal always waits for the timing that finally fits. Whatever brought you to this exact message tonight, out of everything else competing for your attention, was not random. Something in you has been quietly asking for this sequence for a very long time, even on the nights you could not have named what you were asking for. Let this be the moment that question finally gets answered, in full, without you having to ask it out loud one more time. There is no version of this closing where I ask you to become someone impressive. Every single thing said tonight has only ever pointed back to a child who was already whole, waiting for two frequencies to line back up in their true order. That is the entire teaching. Nothing more was ever required of you than this. There is a weight some of you have been carrying, quietly, for longer than you can properly measure. The weight of arriving late, the weight of watching someone else receive it instead. The weight of wondering, some nights, whether you were simply built wrong somehow, whether other people were given something you never got a share of. I want you to picture that weight now as something physical, something you have literally been holding in both hands this entire time without setting it down once, and I want you to let it fall. Not slowly, not carefully. Simply open your hands, right where you are sitting, and let it drop. You do not have to carry it into tomorrow morning. It was never yours to keep. It was only ever the evidence of two frequencies working out of order, and now that you understand the order, the weight has nothing left to attach itself to. Let your shoulders drop, right now, wherever you are sitting, or standing, or lying down. Let your breath go out slower than it came in. Whatever you were bracing for a moment ago, you do not need to brace for it anymore. That bracing was the reflex we named earlier, and reflexes loosen the instant they are finally seen for what they are. Here is what is true, said as plainly and as fully as I know how to say it. I am the child who was dimmed, but never destroyed. I am the one who is waking now, noticing again, curious again, alive to possibility the way I once was, before the world taught me otherwise. I am the one whose channel is opening, whose hands are finally staying open when something good arrives, instead of closing around an old reflex that was never truly mine. I am the chosen one, not because I am better than anyone else walking this earth, but because I was willing to stop, to notice, to receive what was already sent toward me long before I knew to look for it. I am restored, in the true order, exactly the way it was always meant to happen. The child first, the receiving second, both together, starting now. I am no longer the one arriving 1 inch too late. I am no longer the one watching from the doorway while someone else steps through first. I am walking in the Spirit now, in step with the season that already shifted around me, not chasing it, simply moving in rhythm with it, the way I was always designed to. I am not chosen because I earned it faster than anyone else. I am chosen because I stopped, tonight, long enough to let both frequencies finally speak, and I let them restore in the order they were always meant to restore in. That is the whole of it. That is enough. If anything in that just moved through your chest the way it moved through mine while writing it, comment the word sealed right now, before you go anywhere else today. And if there is a name sitting in your mind right now, someone who has been arriving 1 inch too late to their own life for years, send this to them before you close this message. That single act is part of what you are declaring over your own life in this exact moment. It is sealed. It is done. Before you go, come back with me for just one more moment to the scene we stood inside together earlier, the one where something good was being offered to you, a number, a door, a name you did not expect, and nothing in you moved to refuse it. Hold that picture for a second longer than feels natural. Your hands open, your chest quiet. No old reflex rising up to hand the good thing back before you had even let yourself receive it. That was not a fantasy I gave you to feel nice for a moment. That was a preview of the version of you that both of these frequencies, restored in their true order, are already building toward. For some of you, everything I have said tonight was simply a picture, something to think about later, and that is completely fine. For a few of you, it was not a picture at all. It was recognition, the same recognition we named at the very beginning of this message, the ache that shows up only around something that was already yours. You already know, quietly, which one of those two you are. If you are in that second group, you likely knew it long before this final section arrived. Something steadied in you the moment both frequencies were finally named out loud, and that steadiness has not left since. That is not persuasion working on you. That is your own spirit confirming something it has been trying to tell you for a long time. What you need is not hidden or complicated to find. It is placed beneath this message, in the description, and in the pinned comment, waiting exactly where we said it would be, for whichever door your own spirit already leans toward. There is no countdown attached to it, and there never will be, because what is true tonight will still be true tomorrow morning. The only real cost of waiting is another morning spent one frequency short of the one we pictured together. I am not going to ask you again after this. Your spirit has known the answer since somewhere around the middle of this message, maybe earlier than that, and nothing I add now will make that knowing any clearer than it already is. Whatever you decide to do in the next few minutes, carry this much with you regardless. You were never simply unlucky. You were never simply too slow. You were two frequencies waiting for their true order, and now you know exactly what that means. So, let me finish where I started. This is not the third time you lost something that was yours. This is the first time you were early enough, awake enough, open enough to actually catch it before it slipped past you again. That phrase found you on purpose at the start of this message, chosen one, and it finds you again now, at the very end of it, no longer landing as a question. It has become, simply, the truest thing anyone has said to you all week.